Welcome back to the channel. Woo! What a week in gaming. There's been a lot going on that we got to talk about. And through it all, I've been playing Far Cry 6, and what an amazing game. It has held my attention, which is why it's taken so long for me to get to the studio and put out a video. And if a game can do that, it's definitely worth picking up. I'm telling you now, if you don't have it, go get it. It's a blast. So, Phil Spencer talks acquisitions with Wall Street Journal, God of War comes to PC, and Matt Booty gets horribly misquoted once again by gaming journalists, if you can even call them journalists at this point. We got a fair bit to talk about, so let's get into it.
We're on a mission from God.
Before we kick off this week, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that little bell so you can be notified when I drop new content. It really helps out the channel. We're trying to hit 100 subs before the end of the year, and we're on track to do just that. So straight out of the gate this week, Phil Spencer had an interview with Wall Street Journal in which he talked about Game Pass subscription numbers and coming studio acquisitions for Microsoft. I do have the raw, unedited footage of the entire interview, which will be posted to YouTube, so feel free to pop over there and watch the entire thing. But for now, this is what Phil had to say about subscriptions to Game Pass.
So how about we move on to talk about Game Pass, which is the Xbox subscription gaming service. So in September 2020, you announced that you had 15 million subscribers, and then January, I heard you say 18 million. And then a few weeks ago, we heard an executive from another company throw out the number 30 million. So which is it?
We're sticking with our last public number is 18 million subscribers. We will announce another number at some point. We're just, frankly, right now actively managing the great demand from both creators and players.
Now, there's a little bit to unpack there, but if you sit down and do the numbers, that growth over 4 months is around about 16.67%. So if we're talking from June to November, and we keep to those figures, you're looking at a number of around about 25 million. If you drop that down to say 10%, maybe 12%, you're looking at about 20 to 21 million. So it's not outside of the realms of possibility. By the end of the year, Game Pass subscribers should be sitting at around about 30 million. But regardless of how you want to do your math, I think it's pretty clear from the numbers that we have and the way that Game Pass has been tracking since 2018 that it's clearly a sustainable business model. As many ponies would have you believe that it's not, it pretty clearly is. And I'd be pretty surprised if we don't get an announcement of 30 million by the end of the year. So stay tuned for that, because I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. Now, one of the things that drives Game Pass, which is games, and specifically exclusive day and date games, which will mostly be coming from Microsoft's recent acquisitions of Bethesda, Obsidian, and studios like Ninja Theory. Now, we've got plenty of games on the way, and if you look up in the top right-hand corner over there, you'll see a little link to go and find out what is on the way for Xbox. But everyone's hungry for more acquisitions. And Phil Spencer also shared his thoughts about this.
Okay, let's move on to talk a little bit about Microsoft's gaming studios. You got, I think, 23 now? So is this acquisition spree over, or is it just heating up?
I'm really proud of some of the creators that have chosen to become part of Xbox. So many of these creators, they have choice. If you look at some of the people we've acquired and partnered with, it's people we've had long-term relationships with, and they've come inside of Xbox now, and they see our roadmap on platform and service. And I want them to be able to do their most amazing creative work as part of this team. We offer some financial stability for them. It's not about the success, only the success of their next game. I want to give them some more creative capability, longer timelines when required to do their best work. And that's my goal. We're big believers in the power of content. You've heard Satya Nadella talk about it, Amy Hood talk about it. So we're always out there looking for people who we think would be a good match, and teams that would be a good match with our strategy. So we're definitely not done. There's no quota. There's no kind of timeline where I have to go acquire studios by a certain time. But if we find a studio where we have a good fit, we share what we're trying to go do and what they're trying to go do. And if we feel we can both get better together, absolutely. It's one of the kind of privileges we have of being at Microsoft and having the capability to take a long-term approach, and adding amazing creators to the portfolio is an important part of that.
So from the man himself, they are not done. But there's more that he said in there if you listen carefully. He talked about long-term relationships with studios and what kind of acquisitions they would be chasing. Now, if you go back through Microsoft's history with studios, there's two that stand out. One of those is Crystal Dynamics. Now, I wanted to speak on this a little bit because in my personal opinion, they are looking to acquire Crystal Dynamics. They worked very closely with them on Tomb Raider, the reboot. Also, the head of the initiative, a AAA Microsoft studio, was the ex-head of studios at Crystal Dynamics. That's already fairly compelling in of itself. And when you take into account the fact that Crystal Dynamics is assisting the initiative on Perfect Dark, it starts to make a fair bit of sense. Now, studios assisting studios happens all the time. But when you've got a studio such as Crystal Dynamics, which is under Square Enix already, a completely different publisher, a third-party publisher, you've got to start really asking questions. Like, why would Square Enix sign off on this? Now, my personal opinion about this is that they tried to make Avengers a live service game, and that did not come off for them. I don't believe that going live service was a developer decision. That was 110% a publisher decision. And I don't think Crystal Dynamics is the kind of studio that can pull off live service. I think Crystal Dynamics is the kind of studio that can pull off amazing single-player campaign games. And they should be sticking to their strengths. I mean, look at their history. You've got Blood Omen, Legacy of Kains, then all the Tomb Raider games. This is not a studio that you put on live service games. I think that Square Enix is looking more towards going in that direction. And I think that Crystal Dynamics just doesn't fit the mold of what they see in their future, and they're looking to shop them out. The second studio that I think Microsoft are looking at for acquisitions would be Avalanche Studios. They previously worked with id on Rage 2 and are currently working on another title for Microsoft Studios, Contraband. Now, I think the way that Phil Spencer and Matt Booty want to acquire the studios that they bring under their umbrella is in an organic way, in which they work with these studios, see how the shoe fits, and if it does, bring them on board. Now, talking about Matt Booty and the heinous, with a capital H, way that he was quoted in GameSpot as saying that Microsoft are lagging behind Sony in terms of big tentpole games. That is not at all what he said. And so there's no confusion. This is exactly what he said. I'll put the clip up now.
In terms of steering the teams toward games, it comes back to what I said about being creator-led. I want them making the game that's inside them that they want to make. And then our job is to support them. And the cool thing about Game Pass is that it's got room for everything from Halo to smaller games like Grounded. We've got some really cool stuff that's a little bit smaller coming from Obsidian. We have smaller teams. By smaller, I think of 75 people. Our studio up in Montreal, Compulsion Games, and what they're working on. Single player, multiplayer, big game, small game. We really orient to what does the team want to work on that they feel passionate about. And the last thing anybody needs me thinking about is what I call sort of portfolio bingo. Like, I don't want to go to Tim Schafer, Tim, we really need a rodent-based mascot platform. That's not in the grid anywhere. Like, let them make what they think is going to be cool, right?
I mean, jumping off of that, with PlayStation Studios finding so much success kind of with their pedigree of games and their IP that they focused on the last generation or so, building into, some of the biggest AAA, debatably quadruple A games out there. You just said that, you're not really chasing this or that, but do you ever kind of think as the head of Xbox Game Studios, I want us to have one of those type of games?
First, just to bring it up, hats off to Sony and their studio system and the leaders that they've got there. I mean, it's fantastic, right? You can't argue with the quality and the craft and the games that they've delivered and that they're working on now and the stuff that we've seen so far. So just, kudos and hats off to them. I think I tend to come at that less of one of those and more making sure that we are paying attention to fan expectations, right? And I think that there's a certain kind of game that generates an anticipation. It kind of becomes this big tentpole moment. It's a game that fits that intersection that everybody can play, and it's also a big world that you feel like you can have, you can inhabit. And I think those kind of games are important. And certainly, it's been a place where we have not been out in front. We haven't really had the sort of one-to-one with Sony there. I don't necessarily want to get into what's our Uncharted, what's our Horizon Zero Dawn, what's our this, what's our that. I don't think that does anybody any good. But you hit on a great point, which is what I take away was, what are those games that have got universal themes, that have got a big world that people want to get lost in, that have really well realized characters and really high production values? That is absolutely what we want to go after. And Phil did an interview yesterday, I think, with the Wall Street Journal, and he was talking about, look, we're not done, right? We're still growing. The games industry is growing. Xbox is growing. And so we studios are going to have to grow along with that. And making sure that we've got those kind of games for our fans is important to us.
I think it's pretty clear that he's been taken out of context. And this is something that companies like GameSpot do on a regular basis. They misquote Xbox or Microsoft executives to make it seem like they've said something they haven't said at all. And this is why us Xbox community guys get sick and tired of the biased media. You guys need to pull your socks up and start reporting the facts and not putting on clickbait fucking headlines to draw people in. That's not journalism, that's fanboyism. Anyway, moving on to the next topic, God of War goes to PC. And during the making of this video, Gaz from Game On Daily released a source video, and I think he said it best.
Oh, I'm gonna join this one. This one really hurt the PlayStation Nation. After Uncharted 4, God of War coming to PC. But why? Why, Gaz? Why did it hurt them? Well, for years, the PlayStation community has been mocking the fact that Xbox games appeared on PC. When Xbox announced that Xbox exclusives were appearing day and date on PC, all of a sudden the PlayStation crowd sprouted these amazing gaming PCs that just happened to appear and disappear when the argument suited them. Now, we get to enjoy the definitive version of God of War, right? Right? With the power of PC, right? If you thought that was amusing, you should have seen the fallout after the announcement. People lost their minds! Not just me. One just needs to take a gander at the comment section of the official PlayStation blog to be entertained. Just check out some of these genius takes. Hey! You are trash! Traitors! Oh, man, you think PlayStation is loyal to you? PlayStation is loyal to one thing, you fools! Yeah! Sony giving more attention to PC gamers than PS5 gamers. What? How is that true on any level? Let's be honest. Just because PC gamers get the better versions of PlayStation... Now Xbox is going to kill PlayStation.
So I reckon Gaz about covered that subject. If you want to see the entire video, I recommend you do. The link's in the description. Go down there, head over and check it out. And check out their other content. They're amazing creators over there at Game On Daily. If you like what you saw here today, please hit that like button. It really helps out my channel. Subscribe if you want to see more content. And click that bell so you're notified whenever I drop a new video. And if you want to talk about any of the topics that we covered today, you can hit me up in the comment section, or you can find me over on Twitter at riskit4tb. And for now, don't forget, you got to risk it for that biscuit.